let's get down to business.
Yeah.
You're going to be slammed all week. What are some of the analysis? What are some of the players you think could help themselves the most this week?
One on Saturday, Caleb Johnson, the running back from Iowa. There was talks that because he's 6 foot, he's 225, that he could be a 4.6 40 guy. He could be a high 4.5 40 guy. I have been banging the table of no, he is way faster than that. He has run over 22 miles an hour on Iowa's GPS system. And interestingly, when they dropped the props yesterday, I don't know if you saw the 40 props, but they dropped Caleb Johnson at 4.45. So the sports books appear to be betting that he will be faster than the public anticipates, and I think he will be too.
Will he run his way into the first round if he gets there?
I would say early second.
Okay.
Yeah. Although, there's been talk that the second running back will get into the first round. I still have my skepticism about that because this running back class is so historically stacked.
Okay.
Besides Genty, I don't know why a team would feel incentivized to take a different running back in round one.
Even the kid Hampton?
Even Hampton. I mean, he's going to put on a show on Saturday for sure. He was set in the mid 4.4s as well. Obviously, he's a big kid as well at 220 pounds. But for me, I wouldn't take the other one until the running back 2 until early Friday.
So there a lot of talk is being talked about the defensive line being the best group out there, and it's loaded. What's right behind them?
Yeah, well, interior defensive line in the running back class, I would say. I also really like the tight end class. The tight ends were out there at the podium today. You have your two sort of crown jewels of that class. Tyler Warren, the guy who can do everything, advance the ball for you, and then Colson Loveland, just a really polished, skilled receiver. And then behind them, I think there's 5 or 6 other tight ends that are going to start in the NFL for a bit. We have a couple guys coming off injury, 2 in that position group that I think are going to go later than they probably should. Luke Lachey from Iowa, Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame. So it's just a really interesting group. But those would be the 3 I would toss out.
The kid Warren, Tyler Warren, is from just north of Richmond. I think he's from Mechanicsville. And grew up a huge Skins fan. He wears 44 for John Riggins.
Wow. Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
His
I didn't know that.
His father, when he was a kid, made him watch old Riggins tapes to learn how to run with the football.
That guy freaking looks like John Riggins with the ball, like a jumbo version, if that's even possible. But yeah, he just runs people over. And as you know, Penn State was handing him the ball this year.
Yeah.
You got the specialized Brock Bowers usage with Tyler Warren. And I don't know if we had seen that with the collegiate tight end who was as big as that. The stuff of shifting into the backfield, the end arounds, the trick plays they use with him, all that different stuff, just manufacturing him touches, just wildly impressive.
Unfortunately, there's zero chance he gets to 29 for Washington, and they don't have the picks to move up, I don't think.
Yeah, for sure.
Talking with our friend Thor Nystrom here. He's joining us via the Rude Guest Hotline. We're live in Indy. The top of this draft is pretty interesting because quarterbacks always get overdrafted. In my book, I think Ward is clearly better than Sanders. But I think the 2 best players in this draft are Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
I'm curious where your rankings are.
Yeah. Taking out the positional value for sure. Travis Hunter, I think even, the whole thing with the quarterback value, Travis Hunter is one of the first guys that I can think of where he could make an argument of qualitatively, I have this similar value to a franchise quarterback. Because you're getting an A start or an A plus starter at 2 different positions, obviously cornerback, and then the receiver thing. I think as a rookie, you're talking 40 to 50% of snaps he will play on offense. But those snaps, I think his team is going to have a separate Travis Hunter playbook, and he is going to be the featured receiver when he is on the field. You're going to keep him off the field on offense when you're running the ball and stuff like that. You're not going to welcome excess contact to him, but you're going to get him the ball when he's out there on offense. So Travis Hunter, for me, the Titans came out right away, their new general manager, and said, we're not going to pass on a generational talent. There's only one in this draft class. His name is Travis Hunter.
Wow, there you have it.
But like in college, you see them do this a lot. Once they get to the NFL with all these analytics and money, they back off of that a little bit. Can you see him playing 50% every game?
I can, yeah. I mean, because Travis Hunter is different than some of these other guys we've seen coming in, where he played both ways the entire time, including 2 years at the Power 4 level. So I absolutely think he can. He certainly wants to. The only thing he doesn't want to do, as we found out today, is return kicks. He said, I already have 2 jobs. He is going to the NFL to attempt to become the Shohei Ohtani of the NFL. That's what he wants to do, and he's going to be given an opportunity to do that.
All right.
That's a hell of a desire to want to be Shohei. I mean, I guess I get it. It makes sense. I was talking to a DB coach last night, and the way I view it is, unless he's Jerry Rice, unless he's what Jamar Chase is right now, the value he has at corner is so much more significant that you play him at corner immediately day one, and you build a package, and maybe over time you add more to that package. You'd think it's more than that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, because I think he'll be able to handle 40 to 50% of snaps, and I think the discussion how that ends up shaking out as a rookie, it's not going to be between the coaching staff. It's going to be with your analytics department, your medical staff. Mm-hmm. You're going to have people running regression analysis to try to go back and try to ballpark something of how many snaps could the human body at that size handle before the risk of injury just gets so elevated that it's not palpable for us anymore. I also think you can make an argument that Travis Hunter would be a bit better on the field if he is not playing 100% of the snaps on both, right? Like people bring up the Alec Iomenor game when they played Stanford in the second half there where Alec Iomenor was just torching Travis Hunter. There was games where he got tired in the second half, which is that is understandable. I think you can keep the injury risk down and keep him closer to 100% when he's on the field if you cut those offensive snaps down, and his NFL team will have to decide what that is as a rookie.
So you mentioned the Stanford receiver, which I have no chance of pronouncing his name. Say it again.
Alec Iomenor.
Alec Iomenor. I'm looking at a recent article you put in fantasylife.com. And we actually just had a caller call about this dude. So Deebo Samuel is out there. Yeah. He's available. Obviously, Adam Peters has ties to Deebo. Like there's some reasonable questions to ask if Washington would be interested there. This caller, though, just said, skip Deebo and draft Savion Williams out of TCU. You highlighted him as a player to watch this week in your Fantasy Life column. Tell us what we need to know about Savion Williams.
Savion Williams is an athletic freak. So on Saturday, you're going to be hearing that name quite a bit. TCU had him at 6'5", 225. I don't think he's measured in here yet. My sheet had him last summer, 6'3" 3/4. But either way, a big kid and super duper athletic. I think he was 22.5 on their GPS that they had clocked him at. He's expected to jump 40 plus inches in the vert. So a tremendous athlete. For Washington, though, I don't know if Peters would be attracted to Savion Williams because Savion Williams can't run routes, and he catches the ball sometimes like he's catching them with his elbows. His ball skills come and go, and that's a kind way of putting it. I think he had 8 or 9 drops this past season, and a bunch of them were within 9 yards of the line of scrimmage. He did not have many catches last season beyond 10 yards. The previous 2 years, they tried to use him as a traditional boundary guy. He just doesn't create separation enough. It was 31% separation percentile against single coverage by PFF 2 years ago. I think it was 51 the year before last. And then this year they turned him into the manufactured touch guy. That is why he ended up, his game ended up jumping up and he had the breakout season. But all of his touches came within 9 yards of the line of scrimmage. I think the Deebo guy, if you're not going to get Deebo, and I think Washington is heavily kicking the tires on that. But if that is not possible, I think the guy to keep an eye on for Washington, it's Luther Burden. Luther Burden's stock has been dropping. This was a guy who was in the top 10 of every too early mock draft early May last year. And this year, Missouri had terrible quarterback play. Their offense wasn't very good. They weren't manufacturing the same kind of touches for him. But for me, Luther Burden is this class's Deebo Samuel. It's the same thing. You get that kid the ball, and then it's magic after that. And he might fall there to the end of the first. I think on Saturday with his testing, that's going to inform some of that. But Luther Burden's stock is falling right now. And in a weak receiver class, he would be absolutely a slam dunk at the end of the first.
Wow. So Burden at 29, huh?
It could happen. He is out of the first round of some very prominent mock drafts right now.
That's fascinating, dude. And that is a dude coming into the season had like Heisman hype.
Mm-hmm.
He was a
5-star recruit,
right,
St. Louis. Yeah, the whole deal. And right from the get in the SEC, he was a featured player, of course, on that Missouri offense. First 2 years were great, and last year was just weird. They had the quarterback play wasn't very good. They had injuries at quarterback. The running game wasn't as good. Cody Schrader was gone. And Luther Burden got frustrated a couple times. There was a couple games he was sort of stalking up and down the sideline. And if I was him, I would have been frustrated too. They were not getting him the ball enough.
Interesting. All right. What about, let's go to Alabama.
Yeah.
The linebacker, Jihad Campbell.
Yeah.
Interesting player there.
Very
Abdul Carter is such a stud, but Campbell can really rush the passer, man. Tell us what we need to know. Where do you think he goes?
Yeah, and this is a guy that can really help his stock here. And it's a guy, he played off-ball linebacker the last 2 years as a starter at Alabama, but he came into – it's funny, he played defensive end and wide receiver in high school, and then he was signed as a 5-star recruit as an outside 3-4 pass rushing linebacker. But then Alabama shifted him to off-ball these last couple of years and situationally used him off the edge. He had about 10% of his snaps rushing off of the edge. I have heard that during pre-draft training that he has almost 100% been training as an edge rusher. I feel like he feels probably I wasn't at his podium today, but I feel like he probably feels like the last 2 years he got plenty of work at the off ball and therefore wanted to sort of flesh out the edge rushing thing. Plus some of the drills here and the bending around and stuff like that, the fluidity with that. Teams care about that stuff. So he was working on that. And you show an NFL team, I can be used half off the edge. I can be used off ball. He showed, this was shocking. He was really good in coverage at Alabama, really like better than he had any business being as a defensive end edge rushing, type outside linebacker guy who was just learning off ball linebacker. But yeah, that is a multi-skilled guy and an absolute athletic freak. Right now at the books, I think he's 4.47 for the 40 is what his prop is. People are expecting him to blow the roof off this place, and we'll see.
Where's he going?
He will go, well, if he tests as well as we think, I think there's a really good shot at the top half of the first round.
Offensive line is not a sexy.
I don't think 29. Yeah, unless he falls on his face in testing, which I would not anticipate. But
gotcha. Yeah, offensive line not a sexy position to ask for, but you know what? You can't do nothing without him. As we saw, the Eagles did everything with Saquon.
That's right.
Who are some of those guys that you think are going to be making some noise, or guys that you didn't see at first but may jump up?
Yeah, in terms of the offensive line class, one of the guys I'm interested to see is Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. Was a guy that there was got a lot of hype at the Senior Bowl. He was the only offensive lineman who did not lose a one-on-one rep, and he has potential 5-position versatility. He was a left tackle at North Dakota State. The NFL tried him at guard in Mobile. They tried him at center. He was dominant at both those positions. The last question with him is, what is the athletic testing? And he could punch his ticket into the first round if he tests well. So that's a guy that we're keeping an eye on. Armand Mbu, staying with in the state of Missouri, with the Missouri Tigers, a collegiate teammate of Luther Burden. He's a guy that we're keeping an eye on too. He's a sawed-off 6'3" tackle, but he was dominant in the SEC. He hasn't even turned 21 yet. I think his PFF grade last year was like 92 or something like that. And he has the length, as we saw at the Senior Bowl, to potentially hang on the outside. The last question with that is the athletic testing. We think he's going to test well as well, where the NFL will potentially view him as a tackle, but that's something to keep an eye on with Mbo.
Let's go a little deeper. We hear D-line is the strength of this draft, right?
Yep.
Washington has 3 picks in the top 80. I think you're trying to get 3 starters out of 3 picks in the top 80. What are some guys that are maybe targets as you get further down? You know what I mean? The areas of need that really stand out to me, D-line, maybe tackles, and then skill positions. They only have 2 receivers under contract.
Yeah, well, so for tackle, one guy who's sort of fallen off the radar a little bit that I like is Ariante Ursuri from Minnesota. He was good down at the Senior Bowl, and he's a guy who was previously in a lot of the first-round mocks, has sort of fallen out of there as some of these other tackles have become more popular. It looks like he could fall into day 2. That would be a guy that I would be very interested in, assuming that he does. The interior defensive line class, one guy that I'm super interested to see how he tests is Darius Alexander from Toledo. Was fabulous last year in the MAC. He moves around really well. We saw that in Mobile. How will he end up testing? Deion Walker is one other guy. The mutant from Kentucky. He's over 6'7". He's 340 pounds. He played games in college over 350. Yeah. 2023, he was absolutely tremendous and rushing. I think he had 7.5 sacks. Last year, he fell off. He was nicked up. He was on and off the field. Sometimes his problem is leverage. When he plays with leverage, he is unblockable. When he doesn't, he's the easiest guy in the world to block because then he's just a skyscraper. He pops up at the snap. I think in the NFL, you can potentially squeeze more juice out of him by playing him less snaps and make sure that he is 100%, and not winded when he's on the field. But that's another guy I'm very curious to see how he tests.
It's there's so many dudes. What do you think happens at the top of the draft? Do you think this Carter injury thing ends up mattering?
I think it could. Yeah. I mean, I was less convinced than others that he is the guy at one, that he was sort of the generational prospect that was being alluded to. Again, for me, that's Travis Hunter. But yeah, I mean, the margin for error, of course, is so narrow, at those heights, those lofty heights that, yeah, absolutely. I think that could end up costing him. But I mean, could he get lower than 4? I doubt it. I doubt it. Like, I think if he gets to the Patriots, that's a quick card turn in.
So how do you see the top going? Where do you think Shedeur goes?
I would say probably Cam Ward at 2. I think Shedeur.
Who's 2? Cleveland?
Cleveland, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What a mess that team is.
What a mess, yeah. And yeah, I mean, because there's been more smoke about them being interested in popping that quarterback at 2. I was sort of thinking that maybe they would sign Cousins after he gets cut.
Yeah.
But, you have the administration on the hot seat there. You have the coaching staff on the hot seat. But, yeah, that's the way the wind's blowing right now. And as far as Shedeur, I think Raiders is a good bet, unless the Raiders end up getting Sam Darnold. Then I think probably the Jets at 7 is where the bus ends there.
Fascinating stuff, man. Dude, you're the book of knowledge. How many prospects are here?
329, I think.
How many of them have you watched? Have you studied?
Probably 200 and some right now.
And like, there's one thing that BMitch and I kind of try to push back on. There are so many people, because of the internet and because of social media particularly, that claim to be insiders when they aren't. They claim to be, X's and O's, like they grind the film, which they don't. They watch like highlights on YouTube.
They watch TV.
And then there's so many like draft analysts that don't put the time and effort. And you're the real deal, dude.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for making time. I
Appreciate
appreciate
you.
Thank you,
Thank
man.
you for the kind words.
Yeah, man. Kick ass. What is your week like? You're here till the end, right?
Yeah, we're here till Monday, so I can't wait. The testing is just about to start here in a couple hours. I'm geeked. There's all these guys. We're thinking about where we think they are and where they end up testing. Stock's going to go up and down here, so I can't wait.
Interesting question for you.
Yeah.
So Peters and Quinn this week, we're asking about pass rushers, obviously, and they say their biggest thing is the 10-yard split, the first 10 yards in the 40, because that's their get off. Is there a different measurable you like for pass rushers?
No, that's a really good one. The other one would just be straight speed score, where you're weight adjusting that 40 time. And then 3 cones, another one that I look at. But yeah, I mean, the 10-yard, the Vikings do as well. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, famously, the 10-yard is the analytics guys tend to be drawn to that 10-yard because, yeah, it's the explosion. It's the first step. It's the getting off the line. I mean, every single position, it is important to have that first step quickness and the explosion there, the first 10 yards.
Absolutely. All right, Thor. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you making the time for us, man.